Section 72 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 5. The first heaven, the moon. The second heaven, Mercury. The happiness of beneficent activity. Ambitious spirits.
If in the heat of love I flame on thee beyond the measure which is seen on earth, and vanquish thus the power of thine eyes, wonder thou not thereat, for this proceeds from perfect sight, which, as it sees, directs its feet to penetrate the good perceived. I clearly see that in thine intellect the light eternal is already shining, which, if but seen, always enkindles love, and if aught else seduce the love of men, 'tis nothing but some vestige of that light which there, ill recognized, is shining through. Thou now wouldst know if for an unkept vow one could with other service pay enough 'gainst prosecution to ensure the soul.
'Twas thus that Beatrice began this canto, and even as one who cuts not short his speech, her holy argument continued thus.
The greatest gift which, of his bounty, God bestowed when he created, and the nearest like his own goodness, and the one most prized by him, was the freedom of the will, wherewith all creatures with intelligence, and they alone, both were and are endowed. Now, if from this thou argue, thou'lt perceive a vow's high value, if so made it be, that God gives his consent when thou givest thine. For when this pact is closed 'tween God and man, a sacrifice is made of this great treasure whereof I speak, and made by its own act. What then in comparison can be given? In thinking thou canst use thine offering well, good wouldst thou do with wrongly gotten gain. On the chief question thou art now informed, but since in this thing Holy Church exempts, which seems against the truth I showed to thee, a little longer must thou sit at table, because the solid food which thou hast taken requires for thy digestion further help. Open thy mind to what I now reveal, and fix it there within, for having heard without retaining doth knowledge make. In the essence of this sacrifice two things combine: one, that whereof the sacrifice is made; the other is the pact itself. This last can never cancelled be, except by being kept, and very definite concerning this is what was said above. The Hebrews, therefore, were alone compelled to make an offering, though their offer might in some events be changed, as thou must know. The other, which thou knowest as its matter, may well be such that there will be no sin, if for some other matter it be changed. But at his own free will let no one shift the burden he has placed upon his back, unless the white and yellow keys are turned, and let him deem all permutations foolish, unless the thing abandoned be contained in that which is assumed, as 4 and 6. Whatever, then, weighs by its worth so much that it can cause all scales to tip, cannot, by any other spending, be made good. Let mortals not act lightly by their vows. Be faithful, and in this thing be not thoughtless, as Jephthah was, when offering up the first who should have said, I wrongly did, then keep his vow, and so do worse. And thou mayst deem as impious that great leader of the Greeks, because of whom Iphigenia mourned for her fair face, and for herself made fools and wise men weep, who heard of such a rite. Ye Christians, be more serious when ye act. Be not like feathers in all winds, nor think that any water will avail to cleanse you. Ye have the Testaments, both old and new, to guide you, and the Shepherd of the Church. Let this for your salvation be enough. If evil greed should teach you otherwise, be men, and not like undiscerning sheep, that in your midst no Jew may laugh at you, nor do as doth a little lamb, that leaves its mother's milk, and like a wanton fool against itself for its own pleasure fights.
Thus Beatrice to me, even as I write. Then full of eagerness she turned in that direction where the world is most alive. Her silence and her change of countenance silence imposed upon my eager mind, which had ahead of it new questions now. Then, as an arrow doth, which strikes the mark before the bowstring is at rest, even so did we speed on into the second realm. So joyous did I see my lady there, as into that heaven's light she entered, that because of it the planet brighter grew. And if the star was changed and smiled, what then did I become, who by my very nature in all ways am susceptible of change? As in a fish-pond which is still and clear, the fish draw near to that which from without so cometh that they take it for their food, I thus saw far more than 1,000 splendours approaching us, and there was heard in each,
Lo, here is one who shall increase our loves.
And as each one came up to me, the shade was seen replete with joy within the bright effulgence issuing from its midst. Think, reader, if what here is entered on should not proceed, how full of pain would be thy craving to know more, and by thyself thou'lt see how great was my desire to hear from these about the state of their existence, as soon as to mine eyes they were revealed.
O well-born spirit, to whom grace permits to see the thrones of heaven's eternal triumph ere thy life militant be left behind, we by the light throughout all heaven diffused are kindled. Hence wouldst thou inform thyself respecting us, be sated at thy will.
Thus was it said to me by one of those kind spirits, and by Beatrice.
Speak, speak, with freedom, and, as thou wouldst God's, believe.
I clearly see how thou in thine own light dost nest thyself, and from thine own eyes dost flash it, they beam so radiantly when thou dost smile. But who thou art I know not, nor why thou, deserving soul, hast that sphere's grade which veils itself from mortals with another's rays. Thus I, when I had turned me toward the light which had addressed me first, far brighter then it made itself than it had been before, as doth the sun, which by exceeding splendour itself conceals itself, whene'er its heat has gnawed away the tempering of dense mists. So by increase of joy that holy form in its own radiance hid itself from me, and wholly thus wrapped up, in such a way replied to me, as sings the following song.
End of Paradiso Canto 5.